Oligarchy is a political framework in which power is held by a small number of individuals. Often, they exert influence over the state's leader, sometimes even governing directly. Proponents of oligarchy argue that it's a natural and unavoidable system. They typically reference the Pareto principle, which suggests that 20% of the population accounts for 80% of productivity. They also mention Sturgeon's law, which posits that 90% of everything is of low quality, and the iron law of oligarchy, which claims that every large organization will inevitably develop oligarchic tendencies, reinforcing them if attempts are made to eliminate them. Confederation occurs when regional governments unite under a weak central authority for specific purposes, needing collective action yet retaining significant or equal power. Confederations are often established by treaty to address urgent issues such as defense against external threats or economic crises. The central government is mandated to support its member states, which maintain their sovereignty. Federation merges a strong central government, referred to as federal, with regional governments distributing powers between them. It differs from a confederation, as the federal government possesses significantly more authority than a confederal one. Regional governments within a federation maintain autonomy and can legislate independently, but they are not completely sovereign like in a confederation. Examples of federations include the United States, Germany, Switzerland, Canada, etc. Plutocracy describes a society dominated by the affluent and wealthy. It isn't grounded in any formal political theory, but is often used derogatorily to characterize certain real-world governments. Monarchy features a ruler known as the monarch, who serves as the head of state for life or until abdication. The monarch's authority can range from ceremonial and limited in a constitutional monarchy, where their powers are constrained by a constitution, to absolute and unrivaled in an absolute monarchy, where they are the sole ruler. Typically, political power in monarchies is hereditary, frequently establishing lengthy dynasties. Republic refers to a state where political power is vested in the public via elected or appointed representatives, unlike monarchies where power is centralized and inherited. To qualify as a republic, these representatives may not necessarily be elected freely by all citizens. Indeed, many historical and contemporary republics select representatives based on social status, with elections playing a secondary role. Aristocracy, deriving from the Greek for rule of the best, is a system where political power is vested in a small group of privileged individuals known as aristocrats. In ancient Greece, it was viewed positively as an alternative to monarchy, where only the most qualified citizens, selected through a meticulous process, governed others. Hereditary rule was discontinued unless the ruler's offspring were more skilled or capable than others in society. Some consider oligarchy a degenerate form of aristocracy, where the ruling elite are chosen hereditarily from wealthy, politically powerful families rather than for their superior qualities. Authoritarianism is a governance style marked by a strong, usually centralized power that demands strict obedience to authority and curtails political and civil liberties. Classic monarchies, for instance, often embody authoritarianism, where the ruler may imprison, censor, and persecute opposition. Totalitarianism represents the extreme of authoritarianism, where a single dictator monopolizes socio-political authority, controlling national politics and the populace's public and private lives through extensive state-run media propaganda campaigns. It manipulates ideology to dominate various sectors such as the economy, arts, education, morality, culture, and private life, typically under the rule of a charismatic dictator with a rigid ideology. Theocracy is a system where supreme ruling authorities are believed to receive divine guidance, serving as human intermediaries between God and the populace. A notable example is ancient Egypt, where pharaohs were considered divine or semi-divine figures akin to deities like Horus and Osiris, and acted as intermediaries. Technocracy advocates for a governance system where leaders are chosen based on their expertise in specific fields, especially in science or technology. This form of government often includes scientists, engineers, and urban planners. The term can also refer to solving social and economic issues using the scientific method, emphasizing a rule by technical experts. Democracy, from the Greek for rule of the people, is a system where the state's population holds political power. Its defining feature is elections, allowing people to vote directly on laws in a direct democracy or elect representatives who legislate on their behalf in a representative democracy. Democracies encompass various forms, such as parliamentary democracy, where voters elect parliament members to the legislative branch, which then selects the leader of the executive branch. This leader holds power until parliament withdraws support. In contrast, presidential democracy features a president who serves as both head of state and government, deriving legitimacy not from parliament, but from direct elections. With numerous countries participating in elections this year, a Pew survey highlights its importance. While many endorse representative democracy, there's notable openness to non-democratic alternatives across several nations. Feudalism revolved around the exchange of land for services, where an overlord would grant land to a vassal in return for military or political support. This system created a hierarchical social structure, with the king and the church typically owning more land than others. Peasants, in return for protection and land to work, provided labor or a share of the produce from the land to their lord. Demarchy, notably practiced in ancient Athens, involves selecting public officials or rulers by lot. Advocates of this system argue it eliminates the need for campaigning, allowing officials to focus on immediate policy decisions. Kleptocracy describes a government dominated by corrupt leaders who exploit their political power to appropriate the wealth of the populace they govern. Unlike plutocracy and oligarchy, kleptocrats amass wealth illicitly, often through bribes, special favors, or direct misappropriation of state funds. Frequently, these kleptocrats remain unpunished and may transfer much of their illicit gains abroad in anticipation of losing power. Anarchy characterizes a society without rulers or authorities, emphasizing freedom. Its hallmark is resistance to the state or other centralized governmental structures, which it views as oppressive. Anarchists typically advocate for replacing the state with stateless societies and voluntary associations, prioritizing liberty and self-governance. Corporatocracy is a system where the state actively intervenes in the economy to benefit select corporations, often by stifling competition through regulatory measures. A related concept is lemon socialism, a critical term for governments that provide financial support to failing or bankrupt firms, allowing them to remain competitive. Socialist state stems from state socialism, an ideology advocating for the working class to leverage state power to create a socialist economy. In such systems, the means of production, distribution, and exchange might be nationalized or state-owned, or the system may simply prioritize social values and workers' interests, focusing on collective ownership and operation. Communist state. Communist states typically aim to establish socialism and progress towards a communist society. These are generally one-party states governed by democratic centralism, a principle stating that once a decision is made democratically, it must not be further debated. This policy mandates adherence without further discussion or criticism to prevent unity disruptions during implementation. The primary purpose of this approach is to expedite decision-making and prevent decisions from being undermined by a minority viewpoint. Geniocracy. Geniocracy advocates for setting a minimum intelligence criterion for political candidates and voters. A common critique of contemporary democracy by Geniocracy is that politicians often prioritize appealing to the masses through emotional tactics rather than focusing on long-term, critical decisions. It argues that political positions, given their significance, should not be awarded merely based on popularity. Neocracy. Neocracy is a governance system where authority is granted exclusively to those deemed most knowledgeable and wise, traditionally philosophers and theologians. This system emphasizes the leadership of individuals with profound understanding and wisdom, distinct from other forms of governance that might prioritize different qualifications.